Hello, Internet and History 102 peers alike. Welcome to a brief history of Italy throughout the 1990s. Allow me to begin with some backstory. Italy was one of the many European nations to be influenced by the Cold War. A big factor of this being the fact that the two most influential parties in Italy at the time, this is around the 1980s, were the Christian Democrats and the Communist Party. The Christian Democrats stood for democracy or Western values like capitalism, etc., whereas the Communist Party, self-explanatory, really believed in Eastern values or communism and that sort of economic system. Now, breaking the threshold into the 1990s, Italy's economy was undergoing a recession. A lot of other nations were going through a recession in the early 1990s, the United States not being an exception. The people of Italy were obviously disapproving of this. Here I have a graph. This is general trends here, public satisfaction over time. And as you can see here, 1990, it starts going down. And then here we have the unemployment rate, which shows the recession here. And you can see that on the same graph here, as the unemployment rate rises, public dissatisfaction, or rather public satisfaction, increases. Now, Italy and the Italian people voiced their dissatisfaction with the current regime by taking to the 1992 elections, the parliamentary elections. But they didn't have a general status quo as to what the people wanted. And so, in the Italian politics, the parliament that they elected had numerous smaller parties with their own independent views and mindsets, that it was incredibly inefficient because it's hard to get things done when you can't agree on simple things. Needless to say, the regime lasted a very short amount of time. Now, aside from this, corruption was a very large and pertinent issue in Italian politics in the 1990s. Extortion is the act of gaining money through threats, and politicians in Italy were no exception to extortion and other scandals of the sort. Throughout the 1990s, in fact, Italy was plagued with criminal indictments by politicians, as you can see here, with 1993 through 1995 having over 1,000 people being indicted for extortion, and these people being politicians, of course. And throughout all the many leadership changes and breakdowns of political parties in the 1990s, one pertinent issue was being continuously swept under the rug. In fact, Italian politicians would often avoid talking about the unemployment crisis, where 1.5 million Italian manufacturing workers had been laid off, and politicians would ignore it and refuse to bring it up. Well, as a sort of revision to this, the Italian judicial system investigated political corruption in the many scandals. They were a widespread judicial investigation, and they resulted in the demise of the First Republic, or the old way of doing things. Taking advantage of the turmoil going on in Italy at the time, billionaire real estate tycoon Silvio Berlusconi was elected prime minister. He was supposed to help people out of this recession. He was supposed to be the leader, a revolutionary-like minded person. But instead, his reign lasted 17 long years, beginning in 1994, and very few things got done to change the course of the economy. And by the time he resigned in 2011, he was disgraced. What a guy. Now, I know that expands a little bit farther into Italian history than just the 1990s, but that just goes to show that what happens in one decade really rolls over into the next, and it never refreshes. So it's always important to take care of the problems at hand. Thank you very much. Have a great night.